Where is your mind while you're at work? Do you ever feel like you're just getting by or barely managing to hold on and hold it together? I'm Elana Afrika Bredenkamp. Welcome to Mind at Work. In this series, we explore the mental hurdles we face in the workplace and how understanding our minds can lead to real, lasting solutions. Lori Milner is from beyondthedress.co.za. I follow you. I've got your newsletter. You're amazing and you've helped so many people. Thanks for joining us on Mind at Work.
Thank you for the invitation.
What's the role of a coach? What role does a coach play in my workplace?
So for me, the role of a coach is a thinking partner. It's a way, so it doesn't mean, oh, I've got a problem, I need a coach. It's about saying, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, and the role of the coach is to help you get there in the best way possible for you. And it's about giving a perspective that you may not see on your own. But I think for me in the workplace, one of the most important roles is it's a safe space. It's a trusted space, because also depending on the level that you're at, it's not easy to be vulnerable and go, I'm struggling with this. I've really got this challenge. When you've got someone that you can bounce these ideas with and be completely yourself and just real and vulnerable, you're going to get to a solution quicker. So it really goes a long way in terms of being a safe space.
So what's the work that you focus on most then? I mean, isn't that HR, and isn't that the role that HR should play in an organization?
So I think let me speak to the role that I play in an organization. So it would usually be generally work with one-on-one or work with teams. But for me, the one-on-one work is where you're going to see the best results. And I focus on the person in front of me. So people will come to me, either they've been told you need to come and do coaching. For some, it's voluntary. But either way, it's so many different things. I solve problems from I've got anxiety when I need to present, or I've just got too much anxiety. I'm not looking after myself. I'm nearing burnout. How do I put myself in the calendar? How do I spend more time with my kids without feeling guilty? It could be I'm coming across too harsh. How do I say what I need to say, but land it in a way that's heard? So from emotional intelligence to getting better as a leader, to building more safety in the team, to building health and wellness. It's a full spectrum, because you can't say, well, I'm just here to coach on business. The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. If things are not great at home, it's going to impact you in the office. So we go wherever the client needs to go, but it's the full 360 of that person.
I enjoy life coaching, and I enjoy even your newsletters, because it does speak about things that you wouldn't think of normally in the work environment, with colleagues, with HR. In the case of a situation where you feel that a life coach should be present at work and needs to be part of your mind at work, how do you let your HR or your management team know that you need the intervention of a life coach?
So the best approach that I would give, the best advice is you've got to take ownership of that. It's taking ownership of your career development. So put together a growth plan, a development plan, and have coaching as part of that process. If there's specific courses or technical training or other training you want, that's one side of it. And then be specific. These are my goals. This is where I would like to be. I need a coach because I need to achieve X, Y, Z.
I've never thought of a development plan at work. So I'm responsible for the development plan?
And often it's leaders that are going, but they need to come to me.
I know, right?
And tell me what they want. And then on the other side, they go, but my manager needs to come to me and help me develop my growth plan.
Right.
But I would say you be proactive. You kick off that process. You take ownership of your career and development. And if you can come with that ownership mindset and say, but this is really where I see myself. Can you assist me with the tools to get there? This is what I need.
That's really powerful, because you're putting a goal in place that will work for you, but you'll also be beneficial to the company, right?
Absolutely. Because what's so interesting is that the presenting problem is never the problem on the surface. So if someone says, so I'm too stressed, I'm too overwhelmed, so you start to go a level deeper. Okay, are you planning? No. Or I do plan, and then I put, I block out time for myself, but then I find I give it away. I feel bad. So what starts to prevent people from getting where they want to be is I find it hard to say no. I find it hard to ask for help. I procrastinate. Okay, let's figure, well, that task actually makes me quite uncomfortable, so that's why I'm doing that. So you start to understand why you do what you do. when you can get to the bottom and help people, whether it's setting boundaries, whether it's putting themselves in the calendar, that's when you can start to help them really make those shifts. Because at the end of the day, I disappear and you need to have the tools and understand the pattern so that you can then continue to keep making those shifts.
Well, let's make those shifts here in Mind at Work. So some of our listeners have written to us and we've got a few questions. One of them wanted to know, what is balance in the workplace? Now, I mean, often we are in talks and even I say, there's no such thing as balance. All the other times I say, you know what, it depends on which month it is or how old my kids are, So my juggle looks different every time, but I'm not the expert here. So what does balance look like in the workplace?
Such a lovely question. Love that, because everyone does think that. So I agree. For me, we need to replace the word balance with prioritizing, because it's never going to. Balance assumes that I'm going to get through everything I need to in a day, and it's, as you said, it's seasonal, it's cyclical. So to answer that question, when I'm working with someone, we will have what's first known as a clarity session, and that's about. In that conversation, it's what does success look like for you? So by the time we get to the end of our time together, how do we know we've achieved your goals? And they'll give me a list of behaviors. And then they get a little bit stuck. So my favorite question that I like to ask is I say, let's imagine it's 2 years from now. I've fallen off the planet. We've lost touch. It's now 2 years to the day. And I say, Elana, tell me about your day. And you go, Lori, oh my goodness, you cannot believe what my day is like. I say, tell me about that day. What do you want to tell me? From the minute you wake up to when you go to sleep, and don't give me a perfect day. I want to know like an ideal, like an average work day. What does that look like? And the answer I always get, I wake up, so let's say 6 o'clock. And I get to go for a walk or a run, or, I like to do some mindfulness. And they take me through that day. But what's different to their day now, and this is for me what defines balance, it's more spacious. I'm not, because what people want to escape from, what they want to change is, I don't want to wake up anxious. I don't want to have this worry throughout the day. I'm pressuring throughout the day. I'm doing stuff. I get to the end of the day. I don't know what I've done. I want to feel like I'm making a difference. And maybe not every day is going to have, this amazing work. Maybe it's just kind of your usual, but are you enjoying the day? Is there joy in the day? Are you connecting with people? Sometimes it's slowing down to speed up, but are those days a little bit more spacious? And am I featured in the day? Because that's generally what's missing. It's like, well, I get up and I just want to get ready and I take my kids to school and I'm in the office. Where did you fit in? Oh no, I'm too busy. So so number one, a day of harmony begins with you in the day, without feeling bad about it. And it's just a little bit more spacious, and you can leave the time that you want to leave. And you get to the end of the day. I talk about what is that? How do you want to feel at the end of each day?
Well, I just exhaled when you
because it's that to feel list. Well, I just want to feel content, and I just want to feel grateful, and I just want to feel.
Do people
energized.
say they want to feel happy? Like, does that come up at all? At the end of the day, I just want to feel happy.
Yeah, I just want to feel, and the interesting thing is that the word happy comes up less, but what comes up more is I just want to stop worrying all the time. Okay. I just want to stop being anxious all the time.
Is it possible? And I mean, one of the questions that I asked was how balance at home. So you answered it, but.
I've got a different one for home.
Oh, well, there's more. So what is balance at home?
So for me, balance at home, so my definition of harmony is presence minus guilt. So harmony at home looks like when I'm home and now I'm with my loved ones and can I be with my kids, with my partner, or even if doesn't matter who's at home, can I be present and not feeling guilty that I'm not working? Or being with, for example, say you with your kids, but your mind is in the proposal and the email you need to send later and, what am I going to give them for lunch tomorrow? But actually just to be present. And whatever you're doing, do it. Have connection time. So that's what I find people struggle with. I'm at home, but, I should be working.
Right.
And so when you can have that space, and I think the word for me that's coming up today is just that little bit of spaciousness, and probably also to end the day the right way, because I always say, if you can own the first and last 15 minutes of the day, you can change your day. And what I find a lot of people are doing that's interrupting the harmony is rather than get to bed earlier or read before bed, there's constant scrolling, or I'm just checking emails, and you're doing that right to the minute you go to sleep. You're either going to struggle to fall asleep because now your mind's overactive, or you're going to wake up in the night feeling anxious. So even just the way you end your day and bring some awareness to that is also going to create more harmony inside and out.
It's so interesting you say that. So the other day, I'm constantly learning, and the one day I said to my daughter, I'm going to go upstairs now because I've sat with you and I'm going to go and learn. And she said to me, so how come you're learning to help other people, but you don't want to learn to just be here with me? Oh. And I was like, let me quickly run through the house naked. No, I'm kidding. I just...
Wow. Aren't our kids our greatest teacher?
Big lesson there. And needless to say, for the rest of the night, I was with her. But I think you're right. Balance does look different at work than what it does at home.
And
Thank you.
And something that you've just, triggered a thought in me. And I think what also helps us to create harmony after hours is, what do you place value on? So often, like, just give the example of, okay, I'm going to go study. It's, there's an outcome to work. There's an outcome to growth. And sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to say, but just reading a story, just doing
there is
a
no
puzzle.
Outcome. Yeah.
There's absolutely no outcome. So can I place value on it? Is that a good use of my time? And obviously we know connecting with kids and loved ones, of course it is, but sometimes we battle to make that connection. So if we can equally place value on where we're contributing, that also gives us that permission to be there. I was working with someone, an executive, and he was going, I'm not going to my kids' sports matches. And he says, I know that I should, but I'm just so worried about work. And what if I drop the ball? If I'm not there, what's going to happen? And so he realized. And so through the journey together, he was like, I went to the soccer match today and it was amazing. And he was so happy. So it was him giving himself that permission to go, I'm still valuable, even though this is where I'm spending my time. And learning value comes in different ways.
You mentioned it earlier, and it could have been in our chat before this conversation. What does burnout look like?
So for me, burnout it's just complete exhaustion. It's complete exhaustion physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the difference between stress and burnout. So burnout is when you get to that point where it just feels everything's insurmountable. There's a concept in positive psychology by Martin Seligman that he calls learned helplessness. And what learned helplessness is when you get to a point where, based on past experience, it feels like I'm powerless to change this. I cannot change the situation. And it's almost moving into a hopelessness. And there are three thoughts that create learned helplessness. And maybe it's a little bit different to burnout, but why I link it is, number one is you feel the situation's permanent. So this is how it is. It's never going to change.
I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. Okay.
Second P is it's pervasive. I failed the exam. I'm a failure. My whole life is a failure. So this is a little bit different, but this is getting into that phase where it feels like I cannot move forward when people say they're stuck. So it's a little bit different, but the third one is about personal. So whatever's happening, we take it personally.
Right.
This is happening to me. So it feels so in that place when we can start to change one of those three Ps, permanent, pervasive, or personal, you can shift it and you can start to move forward. So, but burnout is just that place of exhaustion, and it's recovery. And what's so interesting is I literally today was having a conversation with someone, and growing up in their household, the narrative in the house is, if you don't working hard is the only way to be successful. You have to work hard all the time.
Right.
And if you get to the place of burnout, it's almost like, well, good job. You did it. At least you know you're working hard. So it's also how are we conditioned, but sometimes we get to a place of burnout because that's the only way we're going to give ourselves permission to care for ourselves.
Okay.
Well, now I'm in burnout, so now I'm allowed to look after myself. I'm allowed to heal. I'm allowed to recover.
I'm allowed to rest.
I'm allowed to rest now. So it becomes a permission device.
Okay.
Okay, well, I have to do this. But then we almost get back into that same pattern, and it becomes a way to care for ourselves. So how do we break the pattern is how do we build in recovery every day? Recovery every day means every 50 minutes, get up, go get a glass of water, go outside. Are you having a lunch break? Are you building in stuff in the day? The usual self-care stuff. Am I moving? But it's am I featuring in the day?
Right.
That's why even illness can be the point of, well, now I'm allowed to rest. And so the difference between I can be stressed, but there's a hope. I'm stressed, but I know what to do. I can pull on the resources. I can get it done. Whereas burnout feels like I'm done. Like, don't ask me to do anything. I can't do anything today.
So I was stressed. I'm owning it.
Because you still, the difference though for you is I got to that point, but that gave me the fuel to do it.
To do it, yeah.
If you were in burnout, you would have gone, I'm done.
I give up. And I don't want anyone to give up. And that's why we're making this. We're making Mind at Work so that you can function at work and so that you can be your best self. We really brought in the best education and educators. Lori is phenomenal. And that's why I just enjoy speaking to you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really, if it's so exhausting, right? If stress makes us so tired, if burnout is, we want to exhale and just, why aren't we sleeping?
So it's a great question because it is linked to it. And I just want to, for myself, clarify that by no means am I saying anyone is intentionally creating burnout for themselves. I think it's that we get stuck in a pattern that we feel like it's the only way to operate. And it's caused by, I'm trying to please everybody. I'm trying to make everybody happy. I don't want to drop the ball. I don't want to disappoint. And often burnout comes from a point of your intention is so pure, but we forget ourselves and we need to start self-remembering rather than self-forgetting. So I think that is how we do land up in burnout. It's not, well, I'm going to do this so now I can, it's a effect of, why don't we sleep is, and that feels like such an old narrative of, sleep when you're dead. But all the research is showing we need between at least 7 to 8 hours a night. And everyone goes, but I'm fine, I get 5 and I function. Yes, you can function, but if you had to go and do all the brain research, look at Matthew Walker's stuff, all the tests that they do when they sleep-deprived people and they give them
why we sleep.
We don't function as well, but we're never the best version of ourselves when we don't sleep. Because we moodier, we rattier, we don't make our best decisions. So how I manage sleep, and I'm fanatic about my sleep, I literally, and this comes from Arianna Huffington's book Thrive.
Yes,
remember Thrive?
I do. I actually noted it here, right here.
And I remember reading in her book, and she said, I treat sleep like a meeting in my diary. And I went, oh, that's amazing. And I get sleep anxiety. So I'm one of those crazy people. I like to wake up before 5 o'clock, and by 8:45, I must be in bed. So I treat it like a meeting. So I start planning backwards, and I make sure that I'm in bed. And maybe it takes me a little bit longer to fall asleep, but I have respect for my sleep. I have respect for that slot.
I like that, Lori. I have respect for my sleep.
Because I'm a better version of myself. And for me, if I am not sleeping well, then how am I going to be in having a conversation with you? My job is, it's about service. Yeah. I can't be my best if I'm sleep deprived, if I'm not thinking clearly, if I'm not focusing clearly. So for me to be my best, I know how important it is.
I wanted to, because I wrote this one down of Arianna Huffington, wisdom, wealth, and health, Oh. I know, right? So I want that in the workplace. I do. I want that in life.
And you know what's lovely when you were talking about how, like, in the workplace, is I've got a client and they do the most amazing thing, and they start to make these kind of conversations every day. And in leadership meetings, once a week, someone's nominated and they call it a safety moment.
Okay.
And you share your safety moment. And the safety moment could be, I had a lot of anxiety, or, you know what, I decided I'm going to put gym back in the calendar. Right. Or this is what I'm doing for my mental health and for my self-care. And so the conversation becomes normal, and everybody starts to role model and share, and especially leaders. If leaders can role model it and say, I was with another team recently, and the most phenomenal leader who was sharing, this is what I do, and I don't feel bad about it.
You're our second expert on this series that have said that if our leadership normalizes conversation about our mental health and wealth in the workplace, then all of us that look up to them will feel that we have the permission to stand up and talk about our health.
Absolutely.
And that for me is true wealth, to be able to speak up and say how we're really feeling. Okay, so now we know what burnout looks like. We know what stress looks like. What are the effects of stress? How bad can it be at work? Surely a healthy dose, and of course I'm being patronizing, a healthy dose of stress could help us propel and move forward. You know, we always hear stand up, resilient, show up. One of our experts says, who defines show up? Who decides? Who decides what show up means for you? So what are the effects of stress?
So stress, it's going to show up different for everybody. Physical, it could be, heart problems. It can show up tension headaches, migraines. Emotionally, crying, angry outbursts. Also, behaviorally, you could get into bad habits. You could start biting your nails. You could start stress eating. There's so many different ways that it shows up. And I think the important thing is when you know what's your normal and to start noticing when you're showing up in ways that are not true to you. And I think it's having that awareness. But probably the more important is a lot of people go, oh, I can feel the shoulder. Oh, I can feel this, but it's fine. And it's don't procrastinate on your health. Don't wait until you are in burnout to go, maybe I should do something about this. Take yourself seriously. It's, have that, always call about, have an unconditional friendliness towards yourself. Can you just be a little bit more unconditionally friendly? If you can feel something, go and get it checked out. Speak to someone even. Share it. This is what I'm going through. Even if there's one trusted person at work or someone that you can reach out to.
And this is still with the idea of stress. I mean, when you're stressed at work, do you give it all up? That's the first thing that people who care for us or think that they care for us say, this job is too stressful. You need to do something else. Surely you'll feel stressed in another position or another job again. What do you do when you have stress at work and you feel that it's your job, but you need to do it because we are breadwinners and we need to take money home?
So I'm going to answer with something that controversial is the wrong word because I'm not a controversial person. But I've done a lot of reading and writing about this, and I came across, do you know the work of Wayne Dyer?
No.
So Wayne Dyer, he actually passed away, I think, I'm not sure exactly when, but has written many, many books, beautiful writing. And he said stress is a matter of thinking, and stress is created by the thoughts that we think. And if we're thinking stressful thoughts, we're going to trigger stress. So here's a simple example. You and me speak for a living. We are on stages. We speak to people. That is our day to day. And that's actually where we thrive and flourish. Like that's our happy place. Someone else, when they are told you need to go and do a presentation, are going to go, this is so stressful. This is going to be terrible. What if I'm judged? And it's real for them, but it's often it's the meaning we give something. It's what are we focusing on, even the language that we use. So one of the tools that I've adopted from Tony Robbins is about how do you create state? How do you change state? Because we creating a stressful state for ourselves, it's not to say we don't feel stress, but we also are the reason why we are feeling the way we do. Because not everybody's going to get stressed by the same thing. So even if you just think really simply about the language that you use. So think about the habitual words that we use every day. Someone says, how are you? And you go, oh, I'm exhausted.
Right.
I'm stressed. I'm surviving. So what if instead of going, I'm just furious with this person, I'm a little peeved. And you start to drop the emotional intensity of the words we use. Instead of how am I going to cope today? How am I going to flourish today? So it's just, sometimes it's the words we use. It's the way we're describing things. And it's not just words angry, and it's not just saying, oh, I'm going to change my thinking. I'm going to not feel stressed anymore. But it's even the phrases we use. I can't cope. This is too much for me. I'm never going to manage this. So just think about what are we telling ourselves all day? Are there different ways? And so the way that we change focus is with a better question. How can I be a contribution today?
I love this so much. You have to repeat that.
So you change focus with a better set of questions. So not, why is this happening to me? How can I grow from this? What is this here to teach me? And a question that we ask ourselves that really causes a lot of stress, how do I make everybody happy today? How do I make everyone happy? You're never going to make everybody happy. How can I be a contribution today? What can I be grateful for today? How can I connect to my kids today? So it's the little questions, and my favorite one that I borrowed from Tony that I often use, and especially when there's something really big, and there is, for me, there's a lot riding on it, it's a big outcome, and I would previously get stressed about it and anxious about it, and I learned to just go, how can I make this more successful than I ever dreamed and actually have fun doing it? How can I enjoy this process? And when I can bring a sense of enjoyment and I'm still being challenged, but I'm not dreading it, I'm showing up to it with a different energy, it changes the way that I approach it. It's also, sometimes if you say, why do we get stressed? The first thing that stresses us as well is overwhelm. There's just too much to do in a day. So you have to look at your calendar and go, am I saying yes to too many things? Am I struggling to say no? Am I taking on too much? And this is a common one. No one's going to do it better than me. So, I may as well just do it.
Do it myself.
I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get it all done. Everyone asks me, I don't want to disappoint. I'll just say yes. I'll just say yes. And of course we're going to get stressed. So it's also, where am I being complicit? So who was it? Jerry Colonna. I'll remember the name of the book. And it was quite a provocative question. And he said, how am I being complicit in creating the situations I say I want to avoid? So I don't want to be stressed. Now I'm being stressed. How have I been complicit in creating that? Look at my calendar. I'm not asking for help. I can't ask for help. I'm going to be a burden on other people. Let me not ask for anybody for help. So again, it's intention versus impact. My intention is I don't want to create disappointment or disrupt the harmony, but the impact is that I'm really creating stress for myself. So it's also just being a little bit honest. What can I start to do differently? Can I delegate? Can I start to manage boundaries better? Can I, a great response if someone says, can you do something, is let me check my calendar and I'll come back to you. Now there's a buffer. Look at your calendar, and then it's about replay. We don't want to disappoint someone, but if you said, you know what, I'm swamped until Friday morning, could we chat about it Friday afternoon? Would Monday work? And 9 times out of 10, they'll probably say yes. We assume everything's urgent. So we can also approach situations differently. Look at how, and are we planning? Because a lot of the time, and even the most senior people, it's common sense isn't always common when we're stressed and overwhelmed. And I always say, do you plan your week before you're in it? Do you know this is what I'm doing? But most of us arrive at the office, open our inbox and go, right, who needs me? And then you're reactive. And then it's straight away we're going to get into that stress response because we feel like our autonomy is taken away.
Or our value.
I value our autonomy, and it's just you on this treadmill. I'm in meetings and then I can't get to my emails, and then that's why we work after hours. So where is it's not the bottleneck, it's where's the source? And just slowly, what can I start doing a little bit differently to create more spacious days? Because the work will be there, but if there's a little bit more space around it, and some days are just going to be days like that. But if we can start to make those the exception and go, okay, today's one of those days, and then how do I shift the pace? So if it's been a week like this, how do I make sure next week is just a little bit more spacious?
You have said so many valuable, really amazing. I mean, this is the first time ever, Lori, I've worked in speaking for 25 years. This is the first time ever someone has unpacked stress like this. I mean, this is unreal. And, immediately I started thinking, what is our relationship with our colleagues in this entire process, Because all of it feels like it's quite internal, it's this journey on your own. Do you share any of it with your colleagues or even your partner at home? Never mind your mind at work,
My stress?
Yeah, well, just generally.
Absolutely. And I think you have to have at least those 1 or 2 people. And I'm blessed to have amazingly special people in my life that I have to be able to be totally vulnerable and go, because if you don't have someone, it doesn't matter, you can be the best coach in the world. If you don't have someone who can hold up a mirror against you and call you on your stuff and see the things that you don't see, I can't grow. So, of course.
But do you bring that vulnerability to work? I mean, do you become vulnerable at work because of stress? Like, do I become vulnerable at work because of stress? Or is it something that should stay at home or behind closed doors? Do we disclose to our bosses that we are stressed, we are overwhelmed, and that we're working through this process, Or even that we're working with a life coach and that this is the one thing that we're working on?
Absolutely. And I was sitting in a team this week, and we did a workshop. It was focusing around change management and a lot of these tools around managing mindset. And the leader stood up and he said, please come to me.
Okay.
If you are stressed, if you are burning out, if you are struggling, please come to me. And I think it also depends, and the reality is it does depend on the individual that we are. So some of us have leaders that we can definitely go. Some of us feel, oh, can I or can't I? So it does a lot depend on the individual. But yeah, no one, and the thing is, no one knows unless we share. And maybe it's just about going directly to that person, but they don't know what you're going through. And if you say to them, this is going on for me, please understand, that's why I'm not showing up as my best, I'm needing this, or people will rally around you. And I think the more vulnerable that you can be, the more amazed you'll be how people are there to support you. But that's when the burnout grows. That's when the stress grows. That's when the depression grows, is when we want to just keep it inside. And a lot of us feel, I need to figure this out on my own. Let me just figure it out. And when I figured it out,
then I'll tell everyone.
But it grows and you lose perspective. So I think it's a scary, and for some of us, vulnerability is so scary. And unfortunately, there's a belief vulnerability is weakness, but it's not. It's not about being weak. It's about being real and still standing in your power and still standing strong. But going, you know what? Actually, this is going on for me right now. I'd love some support. What are your views on this?
We have another question from a listener, and this one, Anonymous says, I work in the hospitality industry. One of my senior managers has become a problem for our entire team. They spend the entire day doing one thing. Where the department we work, it is crucial that all team members participate to the fullest. We have another senior manager in a similar position that has no problem doing the work required for the day. The lack of effort on their part has resulted in myself and my fellow co-worker to work 13 to 14-hour shifts, picking up their slack because it's causing problems. They say they have tried to approach the manager to try and manage better time, and they talk about their discouragement, the feeling that it's leaving them with. What advice would you give if you had to intervene?
So for clarity, so it's the one team member that's not carrying the same weight as everybody else.
Yeah. So it looks like it's a senior manager. There's two senior managers. The one doesn't mind doing all the work, but the other one doesn't want to do the work. And that's what's creating the problems and the backlog.
So it would have to be then the other senior leader to have that conversation at the right level. And I think, number one, it's about saying, is this person, because I always say, if we can replace judgment with curiosity. So number one is to say, okay, what would make this person do this? Not, I bet you they're just being lazy. They're being lazy. So we've also got to go, I wonder what's going on here. And it could either be a lack of clarity. It could be maybe they didn't get specific direction. It may be not that they are trying to be lazy. It could be, I actually don't know what to do. And I don't know how to tell you that I don't know what to do, but it's also not fair on the impact of the team. So a tool that I always recommend, and especially in situations like this, and the best things are always borrowed. And this is borrowed from an American coach named Steve Chandler. And he talks about replacing expectations with agreements. So instead of going to this person and saying, well, I expect you to get this done, the whole team are doing this, I expect you to do the same thing, you may not get the response you want. If you went to that person and you said, so let's give a different example. Let's say I'm in your team and we have a Monday meeting that starts at 8, and every Monday I come at 8:10.
Okay.
And now I'm disrupting the whole thing. So instead of coming to me and going, but Lori, I expect you to be on time, you know that it starts at 8. If you sat down and you said, what I've noticed is that it's the third Monday and you keep arriving 10 minutes late, and what it's doing, it's disrupting everybody and it's actually pushing us over, and it pushes everybody's schedules for the day. Can we agree that starting from Monday, can we agree you will arrive at 8 o'clock? And either I'm going to go, you know what, I'm really sorry, I wasn't watching the time, I will, or I have a 7:30 and it always finishes at 8:10,
okay,
and that's why I'm always late to join. And so we make an agreement. Now the next time it comes, if I'm late, I have to own that, because you could say, look, you agreed that you were going to show up at 8 o'clock and now you've dropped the ball. So then you would have to say, so I have no choice, but we've got to move into performance management because you've agreed, and now I have to own that commitment because I've dropped the ball. So what is the agreement that needs to be created with this other person?
Right.
So can we agree you are going to get X, Y, Z done? Can we agree that this is where you want to be? So firstly, I'd even just say, and another phrase, so if that doesn't quite work in that situation, another phrase and a go-to is, help me understand.
Okay. Stay curious, help me understand, because
everybody, so even to use that practically, you could say to this manager, look, everyone is pulling their weight. People are now working over hours to compensate for what you are not doing. You in this role, help me understand what is going on. And then keep quiet. and
then they'll melt and tell you everything.
Because you're also giving them a space
to talk.
And if there's really just, and it could just be at the point, well, maybe they're apathetic, maybe they don't care, maybe, well, I know if I don't do it, so-and-so is going to pick up the pieces. Then they must be performance managed. Then you call HR, you move into a formal process, and you do a formal performance management process. And this person will either get a wake-up call and need to do what needs to be done in order to move through the position, or the role's going to outgrow them. But what we can't allow is lack of accountability.
Right.
Because if there's no consequence, it becomes culture.
Wow.
Because, well, they're not doing it and nothing's happening to them, so then why am I grafting 15 hours a day?
So now I'm also not going to do it.
So we've got to understand the person. We've got to give them a chance to hear their story, to understand, to be curious, to give them a chance. But then you need to have accountability, because the rest of the team are going to get resentful, which is what's already happening. So it's not easy. It's not an easy conversation, but that's part of leadership.
Okay, Lori, don't go. Here's another one. Elana, I've been working with my husband for 20 years. His son started working here after school, and ever since I've been treated like a child, employee, and also I'm constantly being told how to do my work, but when I'm not here, my husband is the first to phone me. I get talked down to, especially in front of his son or customers. She doesn't like the way they're speaking to her.
Oof.
And when she's not there, they call her. They're like, hey, we need you. But when she's there, she says, I'm being treated like a child and an employee.
So I would be interested has it always been like that, or only since the son started? Would just be a question in my mind.
His son started working here after school, and ever since.
Oh, ever since.
I've been treated like a child.
So I think that's a really difficult situation, and I think that can put a lot of strain. That can definitely put a lot of strain on a relationship, and I think that's having the vulnerability and the honesty to say, not you treat me like a child, because then the husband's going to get defensive. When you do X, so be specific. So firstly, be able to have the conversation in a neutral state.
Right.
So you need to be neutral.
So you have to be completely grounded. You can't be teary.
Grounded.
Right.
Don't react when you're angry or sad, or it's not to say you can't have emotion, but move into a neutral space.
Okay.
Be able to speak to the facts.
Okay.
When you did that.
When you raise your voice.
When you raised your voice in that specific meeting, it made me feel like this, not you made me feel like this.
Right.
This is how I felt. And just to say, these are the things that I'm noticing. And I think you've got to be able to share, this is what you're doing, this is the impact. What are the agreements we need to make? So if you need to call me out, do that in private. Don't do it in front of our son. Don't do it in front of your son. Don't do it in front of a public space. So if this is how it's going to be, this is what, maybe it's about a new set of rules, but also for the person to know. They may not have any idea. And another thing is, what's interesting is, as soon as you're viewing the world, we see everything through the lens through which you view the world. So I had a client whose lens of the world is, my team don't appreciate me.
Okay.
So if someone was late to send something, you see, they don't appreciate me, which it had nothing to do with that. So at the moment, there's a filter. I'm not taken seriously, or I'm being treated like a child. So then there's also a sensitivity, and we put meaning on things. So maybe raising the voice was him being passionate about the idea, and it could be received in a different way, but it's still real for her. So this is communication. This is what you did. This is how I felt. Can we agree going forward? Don't raise your voice at me. can we have the conversation privately? And what do you need to create a space that you feel like you're adding value? Because they do appreciate her. Because when she's not there, it's like, oh, what do we do? So she is valued and appreciated, but she's not being made to feel like that when she's there. So he needs to understand what it is he's doing that's triggering that. And he might go, oh my goodness, that was so not my intention. But until we think that people know what we think, we have expectations. Well, they should know how I feel. They should know that I need help. And no one's a mind reader.
No, because perhaps they don't. Perhaps they don't know.
They don't know. So I would always assume positive intent, rather than go, well, I know that they're making me feel like this. They're trying to make me whatever. They're ganging up on me. And there is something called it's a cross-generational coalition, which is a whole other thing in psychology, and it does happen. You do get coalitions, especially in families, or if there's partnerships in businesses. So that does exist, but call it now before it starts to escalate. Because also, if she doesn't say something, we all do this. It builds and it builds, and you go, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. That person sneezes wrong, and you explode, and then it feels like it's come out of nowhere. What do you mean? And it's because it happened again.
Again, yeah.
And it's that stacking. So we need to call it. I know this may sound silly. Maybe I'm being sensitive. This is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And again, give that person space to respond, but don't not say something.
Lori, you have helped so many people here on Mind at Work, and we're going to all follow. Subscribe to beyondthedress.co.za. Give some motivation to everyone at work. Our minds are all over the place. We now have a beautiful definition of what stress doesn't have to be. Thank you for most insightful, I must tell you. Best answer in the world. Best solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciated that. What do you want to say to all of our listeners? I mean, yours is work-life balance and what it really means. We made up that title and you just, Lori just delivered, okay?
My message would just be, please, to self-remember. When you plan your day, don't just think about your work tasks. Put yourself in the calendar. I like to say the mornings, because for me, they unfold a little bit more predictably. So if you can just wake up 20 minutes earlier and don't think small. Don't go, I don't have an hour. Take 10 minutes. Take 15 minutes at the most. But build yourself into your day and don't feel guilty. So don't check your phone first thing of the day. Just because when we triggering ourselves, when we putting ourselves into a peak state, then we get to walk into the day that way. Whereas if we just straight into reaction, that's where the stress begins. So my message is, please self-remember, put yourself in the calendar and start to figure out what can I do to just start build a little bit more spacious days. And it's not even spacious days, it's even spacious thinking. It's how do we just lessen that anxiety a little bit? How do we give ourselves a breather? So it's how do you start to live by design, not by default? How can I actively start to create? And think about it as an exercise. If I had to design my ideal average day, what would it look like? So from when you go to sleep, when you wake up to when you go to sleep. And then go, what's one thing I can change now? What do I need more of now? And just start with one thing.
Lori Milner, thank you so much. Find her on beyondthedress.co.za.
Thank you.